My talk tonight is about the three refuges. This is an important part of Buddhism, teaching of Buddhism. The three refuges are also known, you'll hear them sometimes called the three jewels or the triple gem. And the three jewels are the three places where Buddhists can take refuge, where they can be safe. Traditionally, taking refuge in the three jewels is considered to make one officially a Buddhist. It marks the entrance to Buddhism. A Buddhist is someone who's taken the three refuges. It can be a moment when you say, this is for me. And you know that you want to be a Buddhist, and so you will seek out taking the three refuges. It can be a moment when you want to perform a ritual to mark your entrance as a Buddhist. And tonight we're going to say the refuges together. We're going to chant them. And if you're not ready to have that be the this is for me moment, or the ritualistic moment, it can be a practice. You can try it on for size tonight and see how it feels to you. Does it feel right? Am I ready to commit in this way? The three refuges are very simple. You say 3 sentences. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. So what are we taking refuge from? Refuge is a safe place. Why do we need a safe place? Because we have suffering in our lives, as the Buddha taught. And we need a safe place from that suffering, to know that there's some place to go to the practice, to go to awareness, to go to taking full responsibility for my state of mind, to take responsibility for our suffering and know that we can be happy. Not every minute, but it's a refuge. What else will we take refuge from? There's danger. We can take refuge from danger. We have this fragile body. We may need refuge. We may get sick. We may get old. We may be dying. The practice can be a refuge for all of that. Most of all, I think, it can be a refuge for sleeping through your life, for missing this entire amazing opportunity to be awake to what's happening and to change and develop and grow. As non-Buddhists, maybe we took refuge in the old days in worry. We just worry and feel like that's going to make things better, and it didn't. Or we had a lot of doubt or fear, and somehow those were taking the place of a refuge, and they didn't help. It just made it worse because it was resistance. We had this idea that if we could just resist all this stuff that was going to happen, then it would give us a refuge. But it didn't. And so we've learned that resistance doesn't work. The only thing that works is acceptance. Other kinds of little refuges that people sometimes have, you'll see people may wear a medallion or a magic charm that they think is lucky and helpful. And there's nothing really wrong with that. But it's the Buddhists call it the refuge of bronze and clay. Doesn't quite compare to the refuge of the practice. In Western culture, we take refuge in our bank accounts. We take refuge in Charles Schwab and Fidelity Trust or the First National Bank of Nevada City. And it doesn't really help. Sometimes it feels comforting to know that we just put that paycheck in the bank and it's there. Oh, good. Whew, refuge. But this too passes quickly. So there's a Zen teacher named Robert Aiken, and I just want to read what he said about the refuges. The Buddha's teaching can be thought of as a kind of building with its own distinct foundation, stories, stairs, and a roof. Like any other building, the teaching also has a door. And in order to enter it, we must enter through this door. The door of entrance to the teachings of the Buddha is going for refuge to the Triple Gem. That is, to the Buddha as the fully enlightened teacher, to the Dharma as the truth that he taught, and to the Sangha as the community of noble disciples. So a refuge is a place of safety. How can the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha help us to feel safe? How can they help us overcome our fears of feeling unsafe? And sometimes fear is so intense that it seems impossible to face. Ideally, we want to find that feeling of safety and belonging inside ourselves, not in a medallion, not in a bank account, not in another person, but inside ourselves. And one way to do that is through the three refuges, the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha. When we have refuge, we can relax. So let me talk a little bit about each one of these, and traditionally what it means and the different ways that it can work for us. When we take refuge in the Buddha, first of all, that just means the historical Buddha. He was the original teacher of Buddhism. He wasn't a god, he was a human being just like us. And so his example shows that we too can follow the path that he followed if we make effort. The Buddha shows us that enlightenment is possible. Even though we haven't verified it for ourselves, historians pretty much agree that the Buddha was an actual historical figure who lived, and that the stories that have come down about him are in many places and seem to have some coherence, and this is not a fairy tale. That's what I'm trying to say. There's history here. So he was a great teacher, and he told us exactly how he got to where he is, and he shows by his example. More broadly, the idea of the Buddha, taking refuge in the Buddha, means taking refuge to all the teachers and all the enlightened beings who inspire us and guide us. Sometimes you'll read a poetry and the poet will say something so enlightened. This happens to me a lot with Rilke and with T.S. Eliot. There are those who think they are both enlightened beings, not Buddhists. Buddhism is just one way. I think you can awaken through many different paths and through an art form. So what else does taking refuge in the Buddha mean? It means taking refuge and appreciating that we have our own Buddha nature within. We can take refuge in our Buddha nature. It's just a true comfort to know and feel this special part of us that when we remember, we can stay in that place of the heart, that place of metta, that place of kindness, the Brahma Viharas. We can stay there and act from there and speak from there and feel our own loving nature, our own Buddha nature. That's such a comfort. We're all potential Buddhas because we all have Buddha nature. And we can develop it if we do the practice and we make the effort. Buddhists believe that every single person has the seed of awakening within them, just unmanifest. For some people, taking refuge in the Buddha means being inspired by the story of the Buddha himself. If you don't know that story, I want to share with you one of my favorite books in the world. This book, Old Path, White Clouds, by Thich Nhat Hanh, is the story. It's a little big, I admit, but it's such a good read. It is just such a wonderful story, and you'll know all about the Buddha and what happened when and how he was born and the many adventures he had. This little picture in the middle here is a famous story when he was trying this path of denial, and he was starving himself, thinking that would help him awaken. And he was at death's door, and this woman named Savasti comes along and finds him dying under the tree, and she gives him a cup of milk, and she saves his life. And so that's one of the beautiful stories in this book that I always love. So you'll know all the stories if you read this. How he was born a prince, how the oracles at the start of his life said to his father, he'll either be a great king or a great spiritual leader. And his father thought, king. He did not want any of that spiritual malarkey. And when the Buddha started to go out and explore, his father didn't like it one bit. So eventually he left home, he left the palace where he was the prince, and he went out as a beggar. But it's a great story, so I recommend you read that book. You can get it on Amazon. So the Buddha also, just the last thing I want to say about taking refuge in the Buddha, he is the personification of wisdom. He was just a person like us, again, not a god or anything more than a human being. So he's just like us. So that means the possibility is real for any one of us to awaken from the sleep of ignorance and blossom into full potential. Another quote about taking refuge in the Buddha. This one is from Ajahn Sumedho. He's always very inspiring. He's in the Thai forest tradition. I think he's the lineage holder for Ajahn Chah. You can look at the Buddha as that which is mindful, the pure, intelligent awareness. Taking refuge in the Buddha is not a sentiment of the mind, but it's a recollection, a remembrance that right now, that which is aware, and that which knows the truth is Buddha. It is not something that is mine. It doesn't belong to me. But when I am mindful, when I allow my life to be increasingly more mindful, that is refuge in the Buddha. And that is a conscious experience within the human form, such as we all have. So every moment of mindfulness is taking refuge in the Buddha. Let's move on to the second refuge, taking refuge in the Dharma. Buddhist Dharma starts with the fundamental truths that the Buddha taught. His very first talk was on the Four Noble Truths. He talked about the three marks of existence: anicca, anatta, dukkha, suffering, impermanence, no self. He talked about the Eightfold Path. He talked about the Wheel of Life. He talked about mindfulness of breathing. All this is the Dharma. It's the vast body of Buddhist teachings that were developed by the Buddha and added to over 2,600 years by other practitioners. So it's all the Buddhist teachings. But the word Dharma has some other meanings. Dharma is a Sanskrit word that means natural law. So the implication is that the Dharma is a picture of reality as it is. It's the way things work. It's the truth. It can mean just the teachings. For example, this is a Dharma talk. You come here, you meditate, then you have a Dharma talk to learn more of the teachings. The Dharma is a roadmap. Because there is suffering in life, the Dharma is a roadmap, a guide on how to suffer less and be happy more. The Dharma is accepting the truth that everything changes and to still be happy with that. So, is the Dharma as a reality, things the way they are, the present reality. We can only awaken when we're present, with clear seeing to things as they are, not being delusional. The Dharma as a teaching, a set of methods we can use to develop ourselves, to learn, to think over, to reflect on, and finally to gain deep, transforming insight and understanding. We come to the sitting group, we share our practice, and we learn more about the teachings through Dharma talks. One other meaning of Dharma is practicing virtue through ethics, sila. Sila is also Dharma. We practice wise speech, wise action, wise livelihood, wise effort. It's half of the Eightfold Path. So Dharma is a big word, lots of meaning. Let's move on to the third refuge, which is taking refuge in the Sangha. The third jewel is the Sangha. The Sangha is the spiritual community of those who have taken on the refuge, who have taken the three jewels of refuge. Those of us who search together for spiritual freedom, who learn the teachings, who seek understanding, and who work to embody the Dharma. We are consciously evolving towards being Buddhas, sharing our understanding with others, teaching freedom to others, helping each other discover the three jewels. So it's our immediate local community on the smallest level. For example, Mountain Stream is my Sangha, and maybe it's yours too. And you hear people say my Sangha. But it can be a larger circle as well. It includes all those awakened and not awakened who practice Buddhism everywhere, and also all Buddhists throughout all time. The Sangha includes the Buddha and his disciples, and everybody from them all the way down to Mountain Stream. In all practitioners in all countries, Sri Lanka, Thailand, Burma, Tibet, China, in ancient times, in India, now and always. Traditionally, the Sangha was referred only to monastics and arhats, and the lay practitioners took refuge in the Sangha, meaning they took refuge in the monks. And that was the organization of traditional Asian community, small communities. You had the lay people in the Sangha, and the Sangha, the monks, gave spiritual guidance to the lay people, and the lay people supported the monks physically with food and shelter and whatever they needed, medicine. But generally today, the word Sangha refers to all of us Buddhist practitioners, both monastic and lay, because they're in our country, for example, there's so many lay Buddhists. Things have really changed. So a Sangha says, let's do this together. We can help one another. The Buddha's disciples asked him which of the three jewels was the most important. And he said, the Sangha is the most important. And when I heard that, I was like, what? These people that I'm sitting here in this room with, what do they know? They don't know anything more than me. What about the teacher? What about the teachings? But no, the Buddha said the Sangha, because that's where the rubber really hits the road. That's where our greed, hatred, and delusion arise, mostly because of other people. And our relationships with other people, we get angry at them. It's easy by yourself. But I always say, put two people in a room and you got trouble. And trouble is what we need. because difficult emotions arise. And difficult our emotions are our opportunity to work on ourselves. So when you feel angry, you can work on anger. You can work on your own negativity. When you feel freaked out, you can work on yourself. That's your opportunity. We get lost in our story. We tell ourselves this story. And we think it's someone else's fault, but it's always our own fault. Even if the other person made a mistake, it's still my fault. Even if they were wrong, even if they behaved badly, even if they treated me with ill will, it's not what happened. It's how I react to what happened. It's always me. It's always me who's listening to the story and not feeling this huge negative emotion that's come up for me. This anger. I'm lost in my story and I don't take advantage of the opportunity to say, hey, I'm angry. What can I do about that? Can I feel it? Can I take responsibility for it? Can I see that it's part of me? Can I let go of that story? Can I just be with the anger? Just not resist it and let it pass. Can I understand the situation? Can I have compassion for myself and the other people in this story? So that's what I have to say about each of these. So I'd like to chant with you to kind of close this talk, and then we'll have a little time for discussion. I'm going to share my screen so you can chant with me. So you guys can see the three refuges chant, and it's in Pali, and then it's in English. We're not going to say the English, we're just going to say the Pali, but I want you to know what you're saying. So it starts with this little phrase, blessed, home to the Blessed One, the Exalted One, the fully enlightened one. And then, just like I said, I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dharma, I take refuge in the Sangha. And that's in Pali. Buddham Saranam Gacchami, Dhammam Saranam Gacchami, Sangham Saranam Gacchami. And then they enhance it a little bit. It's still, I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dharma, but it's for the second time. Dutiyampi means for the second time. And then you do it one last time for the third time. And that's Tatyampi, means for the third time. So here's how we're going to do this. I think it's best if you stay muted and you chant to yourself, even though chanting together with everyone's a wonderful thing, and we'll do it sometime when we're live together again. But I'm going to say a certain amount. This is kind of long. I might just say Namo Tassa, and then I'll leave a space, and you can sing it the same way I sang it after me. And then I'll say Bhagavato, Arahato, and then you'll say that part. And then I'll say Samsa, Sambuddhasa, and you'll say that part. And then I'll probably do each one of these, and then you can say it to yourself. So here we go. Taking refuge, the three refuges. Remember, this is a confirmation. This is one of three things. It's a confirmation to say, this is for me. It's a ritual, opening the door to Buddhism and walking through and becoming a Buddhist. Or if you're not quite there, it's a practice. Just see, what does this feel like? I'm not quite ready to make this be my whole life, but maybe it will be. So take it as you take it. It's all however you want it to be. So here we go. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samsa Sambuddhasa Buddham Saranam Gacchami. Dhammam saranam gacchami. Sangham saranam gacchami. Dutiyampi buddham saranam gacchami. Dutiyampi dhammam saranam gacchami. Dutiyampi sangham saranam gacchami. Tatyampi buddham saranam gacchami. Tatyampi dhammam saranam gacchami. Tatyampi sangham saranam gacchami. So we'll open it up for discussion. I'm going to stop recording.